All right, we're back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. As usual, today is Sunday, May 24th. I don't know, Sundays, sometimes I think maybe I should slow things down on Sundays, but we haven't really done that yet since it was Trent Reznor's birthday last week. So, anyway, what do we got going on today? Today is Robert Allen Zimmerman's birthday. He legally changed his name in, let's see, was that 1964? 62. 1962, he changed his name to Bob Dylan. This is a tough topic for me, I got to admit. You'd think I'd have a lot to say about Bob Dylan. He's an icon in the music industry. But I'm going to be honest here, people. Was not a Bob Dylan fan for a really long time. I didn't care for Bob Dylan in high school. I didn't care for him in college. His songs were everywhere, so it's not like I didn't listen to his songs. They were kind of just always played, and it's not like I would change the station. Well, I might change the station when Rainy Day Women 12 and 35 came on. But other than that, I didn't mind listening to his music, but I never sought out and said, "Hey, I'm going to listen to Bob Dylan." That never happened, and it probably still does not happen. I'm never going to just say, "Hey, I'm going to listen to Bob Dylan." So that's just the truth right there. I'm going to get that out of the way. But let's talk about Bob Dylan first. We'll do that briefly. You could talk a really long time about him, but born in Minnesota, typical story: high school bands, goes to college, bands, drops out, decides to just be a musician. Early 60s, he liked rock and roll, but he just didn't think the lyrics were that interesting. So that's why he was drawn to folk music, because he basically said that you could tell stories that had emotion and just spoke more about the human condition. So that's why he went that way. And of course, he starts putting out those albums. His second album was the one that really just shot him into the stratosphere with his first single was Blown in the Wind, right? Yeah, Blown in the Wind. And from there, it was just nonstop. I mean, basically, he just churned out the music, and the whole anti-war movement just kind of adopted him and said that he was a voice of a generation, and he kind of followed that through. He did festivals, he did, he did protests, he did all kinds of stuff. So he really just put out a lot of music at that time. And then he gets a little tired of that, and everyone knows the story about what happened. He went electric, and then he just kind of was blamed for abandoning the cause and selling out. And I think people still refer to the time that Bob Dylan went electric, with how that was just a big betrayal of music. But then it turns out he made a lot of good music after plugging in. So I think that was just a subset of people, but that you'll hear that reference from time to time about the time Bob Dylan plugged in. He had an album first that was plugged in, then he toured, and the first time he played electric was at the Newport Blues Festival, and he hadn't played electric since high school at that point. There's differing stories about whether or not he was booed. There's definitely boos in the performance, but they can't tell. Some people say he was booed because he went electric. Other people say he was booed because they had announced it was going to be a short set, and he only did 3 songs. Anyway, unless you were there, I guess you'll never know what the real truth is there. So he's cruising along doing his thing. 1966, he's home in New York State. Gets in a motorcycle accident in his Triumph motorcycle. Kind of sketchy details there. No ambulance, no hospitalization, but they say he broke some vertebrae in his neck. So he takes some time off and just recuperates at home, lays low, hangs out in his basement. He records a ton of music, which later would be the Basement Tapes, which would be released. But he basically stays home, and he doesn't perform for 8 years at that point. That's a long stretch. And then he comes back, decides to start performing, and of course he puts out Blood on the Tracks. That's a seminal album right there. And that had Tangled Up in Blue, which actually Tangled Up in Blue is probably one of my favorite Dylan songs. If you told me I needed to play a few of his songs, that would be one of the ones near the top. Then he kind of goes country and kind of fades away, and then he kind of comes back again. Um, he put out an album in 2000 that was on a soundtrack. We'll talk about that in a second. And so he's just kind of always been around. I guess the first time I really loved a Dylan song was when the Traveling Wilburys put their album out. That song Tweeter and the Monkey Man, I've already talked about that, not on video, but in the past Song of the Days. Tweeter and the Monkey Man, love that song, one of my favorite songs of all time. If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. Maybe I'll post it below. That's not my song of the day, although that was a real tough one for me since it's not a Dylan song. He sings it, but he sings it with the Heartbreakers, Tom Petty, and basically ELO. Jeff Lynne produced it, so it sounds like ELO and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Dylan singing. It sounds exactly like that. But I remember the first time I heard that song, I was in my car, and it just goes on and on and on, and I loved his voice and storytelling at that time. So we'll check that out. I got to see Bob Dylan play probably in the early 2000s. I saw them here in Connecticut. Saw him in Connecticut. It was a great show. A band opened up for him called The Waifs out of Australia. I actually fell in love with them right off the bat. They'll be one of the artists that I feature on my Wednesday feature for bands maybe you've never heard of. And that's basically the story for me for Bob Dylan. As far as his songs are concerned, obviously, Knocking on Heaven's Door. I mean, Guns N' Roses made that really big, right? I mean, for all those people who thought that was a Guns N' Roses song, if that was the case, I can see people just like of a certain generation just like pulling their hair out. Lay Lady Lay, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, Times They Are Changing, Like a Rolling Stone. I like that song. Rainy Day Women, I said that one already. Subterranean Homesick Blues. Oh, we gotta talk about that one. Subterranean Homesick Blues, one of the first music videos basically that there ever was, and it was Bob Dylan's idea, rather than singing the song, to hold up cards with the lyrics and then just not say anything but just go like this with the cards as the song goes out. Everyone know what I'm talking about here? Holding up the cards during the song and flipping them like that? That's right, INXS. If you watched an INXS video in the 80s and you always wanted that song, Need You Tonight, to go right into Mediate, and if it didn't, you were pissed, and if it did, it was awesome, but that was not INXS's idea. I didn't know that. That was Bob Dylan's idea. Maybe I'll post that video under there too, just so you can see it. Definitely. Okay. Did I mention any other songs? Hurricane? Yeah, we got Hurricane. Okay. So again, great body of work. I don't seek him out to listen to him. I do like a lot of his songs, so I can't complain there. But if someone came up to me and said, Mark, you can play one Bob Dylan song. That's it. What's the Bob Dylan song you're going to play? I think you're going to be surprised. I'm going to go with the song that I always think of, the one that I would automatically play every single time. But it's from the year 2000. It's from that movie soundtrack, and it's the song Things Have Changed. That's a great song. I just love that song. It's not from his early career. It's not the Traveling Wilburys, which again, I was kind of leaning that way, but this is a Bob Dylan song. If you don't know Things Have Changed, check it out. It's a great song. We're going to post a couple other videos underneath. I want you to enjoy your Sunday, and it's going to be a beautiful day outside today. No rain over here. Hope you guys are doing well. Speaking of Traveling Wilburys, see right here. Hold on. See? I didn't even know that was sitting there. This is the box set. Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan. Pretty amazing. Anyway, enjoy your Sunday. And you know what? We'll see you on the flip side.